Welcome to the FAR Podcast Supplemental. I'm Andrew Austin, and for this particular podcast, I guess, introduce myself or need to introduce myself. Oh man, it's late. It's after Super Bowl. It was a great game. Kansas City Chiefs won. Who doesn't know that by now? Patrick Mahomes impressed. And reminds me a little bit of Joe Montana. He played, I think, for the Kansas City there at the end of his career. And so if my speech sounds a little slurred or not exactly enunciating, I guess is what I want to say, the words that come to my mind, it's because I'm drinking some nice rye whiskey by what's called Redemption. And I don't know if and I've got some things in here from, the various chips and things that we had. It's fingers aren't quite long enough to get down in there. Anyway, Redemption, it comes in a bottle that looks a lot like the Bullet. You've had that, but it's much cheaper, and so I think they're like aiming for that crowd. And it's very smooth. It's a very nice whiskey. I'm not on their payroll. They're not paying me to say that. I'm just saying because I'll be sipping this as we go along. And you might think, what is this? And it's like, and clearly they're not putting dye and shit in there, the caramel color and all that. In fact, it looks kind of like a scotch, but anyway. I'm not here to talk about football or whiskey, though. I'm not sure how long it'll take me to say what I want to say here. Or I would say skip ahead to this mark or whatever. But if you don't want to hear what I'm about to say, you can always scroll and find the mark that where the song begins, because I'm going to play you a song, but I want to set it up a little bit here. I started playing guitar in the 1970s. Those who, good friends of mine know this. And I was very much influenced by, Jimi Hendrix, obviously, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, the good shit. And then, heard Judas Priest and was like, oh boy. And, but also, Montrose and Pat Travers, Frank Marino, lots of good stuff out there. And formed a band called Liquid Rainbow. And then in the early 80s moved to Miami and formed a band there. And David Coleman, my cousin, my brother, was in Liquid Rainbow. And then he moved down to Miami and joined that band. And then I moved back to Murfreesboro and formed Critical Mass. And he went on to recruit Ralph Tulo, and then for quite a while, the bass player and drummer that I had recruited were with them. And then, anyway, they evolved into Mad Axe, and then I left Murfreesboro, went back to Miami, joined the band as a singer, and we have an album out that just came out, Heaven and Hell Records, pretty fucking cool. And then I moved back to Murfreesboro and formed the band Numbskull with some really cool cats. They had they had a thing going, but they needed a singer, and I felt another guitar player, a second guitar player, right? So we could do like a Metallica thing, a Megadeth thing, and there you go. So this was all in the 1980s all that transpired. So Liquid Rainbow was late 70s, and then through the 80s, all that's going on, and Numbskull was into the early 1990s. And I was getting, into my 30s, and I'd made a promise to myself that if that didn't work out, I would pursue another course of another career. And so I wound up becoming a professor of sociology, and now I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, teaching criminology and political sociology and so forth. But music never left me. I mean, there was a time between 1993 and 2004 or so that I didn't. Yeah, it was like a decade. I didn't play at all. And I listened to a lot of different kinds of music in the meantime. And, well, I didn't play electric guitar at all, I should say. I did pick up a classical guitar and kind of strummed around, but it was almost like I just lost the ability to play. It was weird. But I listened to, as I had been for quite a long time, a lot of Frank Zappa, and I really got off into Zappa's way of meandering, and thinking, the improvisational stuff over these vamps. And I love everything about Frank Zappa, but it was just a cool idea that everything was so written out and everything was so precise, but when it came to his solos, just like whatever. And you just kind of go into a trance state and you do what you do. And so when I got tenure at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, in 2005, went up for early tenure, got it. That gave me some job security. And so I began investing in musical equipment and started buying Macs. Really liked the architecture of Macs, Apple products. And again, I'm not pushing Apple. I just like the way they work. And there's with the suite of programs that you get when you get a Mac, is GarageBand. And I was like, this is really cool. Now Logic Pro has grown out of it, and I have that. I use that to mix the new record. And I got an Elisa's drum machine. I got all this gear, and I began fucking around with it. And one of the really cool things about the GarageBand is it has these loops. It still has these loops, but the old suite of loops are difficult to find. So when I laid down like dozens and dozens of things, I mean, some of them have lyrics and complete songs using the Elisa's drum machine or using Apple loops. I bought a bass guitar so I could play bass lines. I just have just a lot of stuff, and some of the stuff I can't get back. I can't remix or anything because they were on a drive that went bad. I actually bought one of those devices that let you read drives. You pull them out of computers or you pull them out of the housing of the external drives, and you can read them. And I've been able to access a lot of old drives, but I haven't been able to access this one. And I have two other drives that, and then I backed what I can up because I became really aware that drives fail. And I still can't access it, but that's okay. And I think that what I'm going to play you, is a mix that I can no longer, manipulate because I don't think I actually have the multi-track recording of it. Anyway, I'm doing this long intro and explaining to you what I'm going to do because I'm going to start dropping these. I'm going to come back in and visit and drop these, and this will be the first one. It's a song called "Stranger Anxiety," and I'm using a PodTrack P4 running into a Mac. And I got a new hub station that lets me do all kinds of crazy shit, cameras and everything. And as you can see, I'm appearing to you before a green screen in a space that I just recently acquired. Both my sons are adults and have moved out, and so now I have the legacy room. First Nicholas's and then Timothy's. So I'm in here, and it's kind of cool. I don't really need to put up, I'm going to probably to make it even deader, but because this space was the attic of my house, and it's been turned into a room. The walls are slanted, which those of you who know worked in sound reinforcement and so forth understand that the shape of a room has a lot to do with the amount of reverberation and so forth. And so I'm not doing any room killer stuff here or whatever. I'm just using this Electro Voice mic. No EQs, nothing. Sounds pretty good. Okay, so this pod track P4, it has what you heard, the bumper, and then I made that bumper. Also comes stock with things, and not a lot of it's useful. This is one useful thing, though. It's kind of a stinger. It's kind of cool. Check it out. It's going to be, let me turn the volume down just a little bit because it's pretty loud. That's pretty cool. And so what I've done is I've loaded into, it has 4 presets, and I've loaded Stranger Anxiety. On one of them, it's a MP3, 320 KP BS, right? Or KBPS. Yeah, kilobytes per second. So, and so the quality is good, but, you know, a wave would be too much. Or maybe, I don't know if it is a wave. It doesn't matter. Here it is. Stranger Anxiety. Okay, so when I said that, you know, wasn't, you know, that I kind of forgot to play, how to play, when I got the gear, this was 2004, 2005, and I'm like, take everything out of mothballs, and I'm using, I'm running my Ibanez RG550, you know, the old yellow guitar. I'm running it. It sounds a lot like a Stratocaster there, which is wild because it really is. I'm using a DiMarzio X2N, like really high, the most high output passive pickup possible. And I'm running into a, I forget the device, but it's a preamp, because if you just run right into your computer, you know, even though you've got all these amp models, which are really good. I mean, that I'm going to tell you, that's an amp model built into GarageBand. And the legacy program, that's like the first iteration of GarageBand. So it's just fantastic sounding, and then you just need to goose it with like a preamp, and I forget what I bought, but anyway, so you just plug it in and you just kind of, you know, you turn it up and then you just run it into the Mac, and I'm obviously accessing the Mac with an 1/8 inch TRS cable. And you know, or actually, no, when I stop and think about it, now I'm running a mono cable into this device, and then it has not even a USB port. and I'm running into an old Mac laptop. This is forever ago. This is what, 2003, 2004. And I just turned everything on and I started jamming, and it was like combination of kind of instinct from playing all these years and then listening, absorbing all this stuff from Zappa. It was like I'm playing guitar very differently than I did before. And before I was, and this isn't my characterization, Zane Carroll, who dear friend of mine who was in Critical Mass and Liquid Rainbow, had said this to me. He said, when I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is a lot of Ritchie Blackmore. And it's like, yeah, I think so. I can do the Hendrix thing and all that, but something about Ritchie's style really got me. And if you know how to do Ritchie's style, then you can do Yngwie Malmsteen. And so a lot of the stuff on the Critical Mass and so you're like, that, and I don't think I even heard Malmsteen yet. Although I will tell you that Liquid Rainbow back in the early 80s opened up for Ron Keel and his band Steeler, and Keel went out to LA, and then that's discovered Malmsteen, but I didn't really know who he was. And so that whole neoclassical kind of thing was obvious to me. I don't know why, but and it was funny, living in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and you're like jamming with people. Some people were kind of critical of, the minor keys I was playing in, and those modes, Phrygian mode and all of that. And I didn't know theory. I didn't know what I was doing. I could, it was instinctive. But now all of a sudden, I'm playing Mixolydian, I'm like way off in Zappa land. And so I'm listening back and I'm thinking, God, I never played guitar like that before. Like what's happening? And so then, now I'm sorry, these are digressions, and I'm sorry, but to go on about it. But I did study in the 1983, I guess it was, under Jerry Roberts, who's a classical guitar player, and I took classical guitar and forced me to learn how to read music. I never sight read, still can't sight read, but it did force me to because he gave me sheets of music and he said, go figure this, go read this and come back. And I did a recital, and I did 3 songs of a recital: Autumn Leaves, Green Sleeves, which I still remember. Autumn Leaves is pretty straightforward, but it was an interesting, the particular way that it was written was interesting. And then this classical version of Lady Madonna, which I've forgotten, but would used to really blow people's minds. Well, yeah, okay. So I understood reading, and I wrote some things out, and it went through that period. But it's sort of like, it's not like riding a bicycle. You sort of figure it out and then you let it go, and and maybe some of that sunk in. But I never took a theory class. I mean, I just took a classical guitar class. I never took a music class or a theory class or anything like that. And so then I started sort of figuring out what it was that I was doing. And now I understand theory and all of that stuff. And it's not that it helped me play any differently, knowing all that stuff, but it helped me understand what it was that I was doing. So I became sort of literate, or at least, literate in theory. I still can't, of course, sight read, and I need to go back and, if I was going to do any kind of working from the ledger, I would need to refresh myself for a while. But the thing about music, and a lot of jazz players were like that, they would have their chord books and all that kind of stuff. But, and so they understood theory intrinsically mostly. But, and that's what you need to improvise. And again, like I was saying with Zappa, sort of letting yourself go, that was the main thing. And so Stranger Anxiety, this is one of the first things I recorded after 10 years of not playing the guitar. And I just hooked it up and just did that. Now I've got a lot of that stuff. And if you listen to my old podcast, there's a thing called it's cooler over here, which I use as the bumper for my podcast, and that was something I recorded during this period. And I have a ton of these things. And when I do my video lectures, when I'm doing an online class, which I had to do a lot during the COVID thing, I actually take vamps and my soloing and so forth and use them as bumpers to the video lectures. Anyway, I'm rambling on, but that's stranger anxiety. And when I next time that I see you, I'll have a for the supplemental. Now I've got the podcast, the FAR podcast, is associated with my blog, and it's political, and so I'm going to come back and do some political things. So we'll just call this the FAR podcast supplemental. I won't have like the fancy intro or whatever. I'll just appear. You'll hear the thing. And maybe I just might make it routine or ritual to always have some whiskey. Oh, there's my thing. I can get rid of it now. I don't even know what that is, but it's pretty gross. Oh, it's cork. Duh. Because Redemption has cork. That's all that shit flying. So it's not like popcorn and chips and shit. It's just all this cork. So maybe I'll make it a ritual to have a little bit of whiskey when I play these songs. And so the songs only take like a minute, 2, 3, 5. I've got some that are longer than that, but I've been talking to you for 22 minutes. Thank you for your patience. I'm up here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I got my wife and I love her dearly. And really that's all I need. I got my boys. They're in town too. It's great. I got my job. But I really do miss my friends there in Murfreesboro. You know, Lee and David and my sister Susie, everybody. So I hope that you'll take these videos as kind of being a point of contact. I can't be there in person. I will be coming to town in mid-March, and I'm going to spend around my birthday, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time there in Murfreesboro. So maybe some of us can like hook up. But I'm always posting on Facebook, and I do that in part because I curate like the things I'm reading. It's kind of like a journal for me, but also because I got all these friends, and we're like, we're connected. We got that mind connection going. Anyway, so here is the bumper that you heard at the beginning. We'll use that as the outro, and until I see you again. Love you.